Content warning. This episode contains discussions of sexual assault, which may be distressing to some listeners. If you are sensitive to this topic, we encourage you to take care of yourself, whether that means pausing, skipping this episode, or listening at a time when you feel safe and supported.
Hey, Polly.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm all right. We're here for part two.
Part two. Awesome.
Yeah, part two of our Blurred Lines podcast. We got an all-star panelist on here. It's going to be good. Our first conversation went just so well that we had to bring everybody back for a part two.
I loved how they were asking each other questions and bouncing off each other. That I thought was the best part.
That was great. Even afterwards, I was getting email correspondence about different networking. So hopefully a lot of our panelists are now collaborating to do different programs and resources out there. So without further ado, welcome back to Totally Preventable. We are our part two of our Blurred Line Totally Preventable series. And we're just going to jump right in because the conversation was so hot after the first episode. So we just want to go right in with the second. And I'm going to start off with Brittany. What should a student do if they're underage at a bar and suddenly feel unsafe?
So if they're underage and at a bar and all of a sudden don't feel safe, they need to find either a bartender or someone that's working at the door and tell that person immediately. They can also go find their friends and tell that person immediately. They don't have to hesitate to call us. Just because you're underage at a bar, that is not going to be punishment that you don't feel safe at that certain time. So the main priority is their safety. They can call us at any moment, at any time, and tell us what is going on and tell us the truth of what is going on. If it's an individual, we want the best description possible for what they look like, what they did, where they went, so that we can find that individual and see what's going on. So my experience would be that they need to go find someone in the bar and tell them what's going on, and to have them call us so that we can arrive and assess the situation.
Thank you. I think that takes away a lot of that fear. A lot of people may think because they're underage, they shouldn't be in that establishment in the first place. They may not call, but thanks for making that seem like it's people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, safety is the main priority. So we're not going to punish anybody for being underage at a bar if they feel unsafe. The only punishment that would come from is if that person gets intoxicated and we find them on the side of the road, things like that, and we can't get them home and they end up at the hospital. There's repercussions for that kind of behavior, but or fighting in a bar. But for them feeling unsafe and wanting help and needing help, there's no punishment for that.
Right. Amy, could you tell us how bartenders play a role in keeping people safe and preventing assaults, and what students should look for to know that a bar is taking these things seriously?
Yeah, I'd say that bartenders' biggest role is increasing their awareness and being able to pay attention to everything that's going on throughout the night. Whether you're in a cocktail bar or a very busy, like high volume bar, every interaction with your guest is constant. It's not just checking in at one moment to see if they're doing okay at that time and then being done with it. It's checking in and being cognizant of what's going on throughout the entire duration of people coming in together. So whenever we're training our bar teams, we want them just to increase their awareness, make sure that they are giving the same level of attention to every single person that walks into the bar, regardless of if they came in with a friend group, if they came in by themselves, if they came in on a date. Everybody gets treated the exact same. We also talk a lot about having them question their unconscious biases and making sure that they're looking at and paying attention to every single person that comes in, not just people who look like you or have relationships that look like yours. It's looking outside the box and making sure that every single person that comes in that door gets the same level of attention and hospitality. And in terms of what students or people who are going to bars can look for, like, again, if there happens to be that this is a safe bar, we are a trained Safe Bars bar sticker on the door, that's always a great thing to look for. I always encourage people to just like take stock of what they see when they step into the bar anyways. Look for people that are actually paying attention to you, not people that are like buried down in their phone, texting away and not paying attention to what's going on. I want to be in a place, and I want you to be in a place where people are paying attention to everything that's going on. And people who are receptive when we tell them that something is going on. The moment that you talk to a person on staff in a bar establishment and they brush you off or don't pay attention to what you're saying, especially if you're bringing a safety concern there, get out and don't patronize them. There's no reason to go back there. You want people who are paying attention at all times, support you, and are being, conscientious and aware and treating you with dignity and respect in the same way that they're asking for people to operate in their space.
Never thought of that. Sloan, if a friend looks uncomfortable at a party, how can students step in without making things worse?
So there are a lot of strategies that can be used to step in. We use a model of 6 Ds of bystander intervention that are pretty easy to remember. So one of the first that we usually talk about is direct, which is being direct with the person you might identify as like the aggressor, or communicating directly with the person who is being targeted in an effort to interrupt the interaction. So that could look like going up and asking the person who's getting too much in someone's space if they could give them a little more space. It might be going up to the person that's being bothered and checking in with them and seeing how they're feeling and sort of disrupt that interaction that way. We also talk about de-escalation, so diffusing some of the tension just by interrupting the interaction, which directing can do, but generally is addressing like the behavior that's happening. And that could just be like you jumping in and asking how everyone's doing, or asking if everyone knows the host of the party and how do they know them. It could be asking the person that's being targeted to help you find your cell phone. Like, I can't find my cell phone. Can you come and help me find it? We also talk about distracting. So that is a little self-explanatory. You're trying to distract the aggressor to interrupt what's happening and allow the targeted person to exit. So that could be you coming in with a big joke, acting like you know the person who is being targeted and starting a conversation, maybe starting a dance circle, anything that can distract attention away from the targeted person. And then we also talk about delay. So checking in afterwards, after it's happened. You might do this if you don't feel safe intervening. And it's really important in that process to make sure that you're checking in on yourself too. There's also delegating, so getting help from a friend, or if you're out at a bar with your friends, informing staff or security to go in and step in. And these are in situations where you might not be the safest person to intervene, or you don't feel safe or equipped to do so. The last is documenting, like being a strong witness. So recording any details you can, sharing with someone else, maybe even taking a video to provide additional support to that person if needed. I think some of the best ways though to like keep it from getting uncomfortable is like really just like doing your best to keep it short, keep it light, and get people separated from one another so that you can assess what needs to happen after the fact. Like, we want to prevent further harm first.
Remember all those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Elizabeth, if a student feels trapped in an unhealthy relationship, what steps can they take to reach out safely?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend kind of starting with someone that in your life who you can trust with that information and you feel safe speaking with. I think it's always a little bit better to start with someone you know and who might know the situation, and you would feel more comfortable starting with them. And then if they're on campus, it definitely kind of depends on what university they're at. But I know at Salve there are some programs and things they can go to. I would recommend starting with if there are any like on-campus student organizations centered towards helping students who are going through either sexual assault, anything like that. They will also have resources for people in an unhealthy relationship. There's also most likely some different offices who work with that. I'm not 100% sure exactly what they're called at Salve. I don't know if anyone on this call might know, but they can also always reach out to our office as well, or any domestic violence agency in their area, with someone who can definitely help them get started with that process. Unfortunately, it's something they have to be willing to do on their own. Leaving an unhealthy relationship is never an easy process or as easy as you want it to be. But in order to start that process, you have to be ready to kind of put in the work yourself. I think a lot of what our agency tries to do is not doing it for you, but empowering you to get to the point where you can take these steps on your own. Obviously, we have things in place that can help you and kind of get you started on that path, but you do have to be the one to initiate that process. That's why I say it's always nice to start with someone in your life who might know the situation so they can also help you kind of along that process and get started, because I know those initial phone calls can be really intimidating to make and scary if this is, your first time ever dealing with something like this. But I would just start with finding your trusted person who can help you through this process, and then start with a phone call. Typically, whichever phone call you start with, even if they can't help you, they'll give you different resources of who can help you or who is best to reach out for. So don't overwhelm yourself in trying to look up every single thing that's available to you, but at least start with one.
Is that a harder step to take than people might think, to make that first call, that initial call?
Absolutely. It is so much harder than anyone thinks, because there's so much behind it, especially in an abusive relationship. We see these cycles of abuse where it's not always bad. Sometimes, it starts an amazing, healthy relationship, and then slowly it turns into something a little bit more abusive, or it's these small signs that just kind of start to build up. And then after something big happens, it goes back to this nice, healthy, loving kind of what you think it is in your head, until it goes bad again. It's just that cycle of abuse that people get stuck in, because it's not always bad. Sometimes there are great parts to it. You have a lot of fun with your partner. You sometimes do feel very safe with them, but you don't always feel safe with them, and you should always feel safe with your partner. And just especially if you have the same friend group, they know a lot of the people in your life. There's a lot of different steps and barriers that can prevent someone from wanting to end this relationship. They might not want, other people to find out what happened, because it'll ruin their reputation. Other people will start to judge them for it. But unfortunately, that's not on you for leaving them. They chose to commit those acts and do those things to you. So you simply getting help for that is not, ruining their life or spreading rumors about what they've done. It's just getting help for what you need and what you've experienced. They have to live with the consequences of their actions.
Thank you.
Can I just
Jennifer.
add something real quick?
Yeah.
So the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence has a 24-hour helpline that can be called or chat if someone needs some kind of immediate answer or question, and they can talk to them. We also have a domestic violence advocate, Chelsea Shapiro. So they can come and talk to her at any time. They don't have to get police involvement. They can just ask how, the courts go and what kind of future things, or do a safety plan. So there are resources out there. And the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence has the resources in different areas of the state on where they can go. So Women's Resource Center is used a lot here in Newport for domestic violence cases and information.
Thank you. Jennifer, what do you wish more students knew about acquaintance assaults, where the person is not a stranger, but someone they know?
I wish they knew that this was more common. The majority of sexual assaults are actually committed by somebody the person knows. The idea that this is only a kind of crime that happens passing a dark alley, is with a stranger. We talk to our children about stranger danger, but the majority, particularly for children, the majority of the sexual assaults are actually from somebody they know, like a parent, a coach, a teacher, somebody in the community. They generally tend to be highly respected. This gets into conversations around grooming as well when you're talking to younger people. But then the same applies as we're talking about college situations or older young adults.
I've been hearing about grooming a lot in the media, probably I'd say now for like the last 2 to 3 years. Can you just give a brief description as to what grooming is?
Ultimately, grooming is a generally series of actions that a person takes to gain confidence in generally a minor, but somebody who takes steps to gain their confidence, gain their trust, and then at a certain point gets them to do something that they may not want to do. and then generally exerts some sort of control or fear or idea of a retribution or consequence. And that control over that person's life stems from, probably in the very beginning, it may feel nice. It may feel good to the victim to get that kind of attention, to have kind of an affirmation of somebody maybe older than you, or somebody in a position of authority is paying attention to you, but it turns sinister. And this is why I say it's often somebody that people know, that is trusted in the community. Grooming is an incredibly important thing for parents to know about, and grooming doesn't necessarily stop when somebody turns 18. The idea of grooming continues on into, this is where we get into trafficking and that sort of behavior as well, and that kind of crime. So yeah, it is important that people know about it, and parents and caregivers and friends and everyone knows the signs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask one follow-up question?
Okay.
It's actually a question of you, Amy. Maybe one of the most common questions I get when I do interviews about safety in dating and meeting up at bars is, I hear about the angel shot. You know, tell me, how effective is the angel shot? And I think there's a lot of social media ideas of the different like hand signals you can do or shots that you can order that everyone knows the code around. How effective is that? Is that real?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a lot of strong feelings about the angel shot within safe bars. Like in general, yes, great concept of having a way to safely report that something's happening and not have to draw a lot of attention to yourself. But I feel the problem with the angel shot is that it became a very highly gendered tactic. So we only see the flyers about an angel shot going into a women's designated bathroom. And it would make it so that only women can be targets and make it that only men can be the aggressors. And yes, we know exactly what the stats are telling us, but everybody can be aggressed upon, anybody can be harmed, anybody can feel harm, and everybody is capable of committing harm as well too. So I like the idea of it. And then what we do when going into bars is tell them to come up with something very specific in their own bar space. If they want to have a code word, they can have that code word, but make it very highly available and visible for anybody that can see it. Or, I mean, just don't put it, if you have a gendered bathroom, making sure that it's not just in one place, that it is somewhere that that everybody can see. But I think going for encouraging them to just make it so that whatever designated thing they put into their restrooms or on their menu or in their website says, our staff is trained to help you. Please feel free to come up to us at anyone at any point in time in your experience here. That way they know that everybody is capable of having a conversation, making sure that they are staying safe. And we don't get into the slippery slope of it being a gendered experience, because everybody can experience harm and everybody has the capacity to commit that harm too. So we want to make sure that people are looking at it in a more broad category rather than narrowly defined. Only women can be harmed and only men can do the harm, because that then, puts us down that very pigeonholed scope of things that we're trying to break out of, which gets those like stereotypes and narratives that men can't experience harm, rape, assault, whatever it might be. But yes, love the idea and concept, but we want to broaden the discussion, making sure that every bar is having their own discussions about how they want to be able to serve the people that are coming into their spaces with safety, how they can highlight dark corners or private rooms or bathrooms or anything where people could be isolated, all those different things. Great question.
So Brittany, can you tell us how the process goes when police work with campus police on a sexual assault report?
So usually the reporting party will report to campus police, and then they will immediately notify us, and we go down and we take the report, especially if we're going to be doing a full investigation and the charging. So they work really well with us. We get all the information from the student, and we have FSRI now with us, which is like family services. So they'll come down as well to kind of bridge the barrier between us and the victim. we ask a lot of information and it's very important to the case. But me as an investigating officer, if a female was the victim, I would necessarily try to establish a relationship with them so that they feel more comfortable around me. And I ask a lot of questions, but it's very important that we get all the information possible to prosecute the case. And then we'd go forward with, bringing them to the hospital, getting an advocate at the hospital, doing things with them there, and then a detective coming down and asking the same questions again. So it is a process. Campus police have been great with us working together, but usually immediately when the assault has happened, they'll call us to take over the investigation.
Thank you. Elizabeth, how do you help those who may be ashamed to label what they're going through as a form of abuse?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is just trying to fight the stigma in general that there should be any shame around, facing abuse or surviving that. There's really nothing you can do to prevent it. Unfortunately, I mean, obviously there are small things you can do to prevent it, but anyone can find themselves in an abusive relationship. There is no stereotype of who it may be. And as Amy mentioned, every situation looks differently for people as well. There's no standard of who is an abuser and who is abused. I think it's just kind of recognizing this can happen to anyone. And as I mentioned, it's a cycle of abuse. It doesn't always start, it often actually does not start as an abusive relationship. It starts like a standard relationship. You're very happy with them. You have this honeymoon phase until things start to not feel as good. So I think just letting people know that, this can happen to anyone. There's nothing you did that made this happen. It's not your fault in any way. And when you do ask for help, I promise you, no one is judging you. Everyone you speak with is there to help you, is there to listen, and just wants to make sure that you're safe. We're here for you. No one's here to judge you. And I understand how scary the whole process is and how it can make you feel ashamed in yourself. And oftentimes a big part of the abuse is your partner, putting you down, and this emotional abuse where they tell you it's your fault. You're doing these things to cause this, but you're not. It is them and they are responsible for their own actions. So I think in general, it's about fighting that societal stigma and just as people go throughout life, don't continue to perpetrate that and understand that statistics of abuse are pretty much the same or similar throughout every single demographic. Every demographic faces domestic violence and abuse. There is no one who's exempt. There's no one where it's almost unheard of. It goes across all demographics. There are so many different people that experience this, and it's not your fault. I think those are kind of the main things for this.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Jennifer, does RAIN have a way to support students who are looking to file a report or get more help that might be scared and maybe need help reporting to their parents or to law enforcement?
So RAIN's National Sexual Assault Hotline, you can text it at 64673 or call 1-800-656-HOPE. Or find it at rain.org. Many ways to connect with the National Sexual Assault Hotline. But when anybody, student or otherwise, calls, there is somebody there. There is a trained specialist who can help the person meet them where they are. That's kind of an important part, right? Whether or not they are ready to report, ready to even maybe acknowledge what happened to them or even understand what happened to them. One of the most common questions we will get when somebody calls is, was this rape? Does this count? So we can do safety planning. How can you, particularly if you're in a situation where this is intimate partner violence, what is safety planning for going forward? We can help with, what are the processes and the steps to report to police, to report on campus, to speak with your parents. It is where that person is within their kind of disclosure. Is this their first disclosure? Oftentimes with younger people, when they call the hotline, it may be their first. Sometimes when they are older, they may be thinking about something that happened to them in the past. All of these are different steps that our support specialists can help with and help each person get an individualized crisis care plan.
Shale, for parents listening, how can you start honest conversations with your teens about dating violence?
I think there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And apparently there's going to be drilling in the background. I think there's a lot of different ways to go about that, but I think there's a lot of lead up work that we have to do. I don't think you can just sort of wait until you're in the moment or wait until you're in a crisis situation. I think like having early conversations. I think teachable moments are the most important things to do. And we find them wherever humanly possible. I think one of the things that I'm so lucky at having young co-founders to tap into sort of what the moment is that kids are consuming media where there's conversation around this. So an example of that has been Love Island. Not a show that's a favorite of mine, not a medium I like, but the kids really quickly alerted to me that, first of all, there were so many more young people watching this particular season for some reason than ever before, and that we were seeing incredibly toxic relationships play out. I think that's, now that I'm learning more, pretty par for the course with Love Island. But so we took the opportunity to say, this is what we're seeing play out for toxic relationships. This is what's being normalized in this media platform. And this is the conversation we're seeing online around these toxic relationships. And in particular, this one particular character is a female identified character was really toxic behavior. And I think what we got to do at that point is then say, this is a teachable moment. We are watching this, we're learning from it, and we're identifying it and reducing that normalizing of it in a way that I think all parents can do too. Like everybody has the opportunity to find teachable moments wherever we can to start those conversations. I think like moments in media are great opportunities to grasp versus like totally like just cold conversation. But sometimes cold conversation in the car too. I know that a lot of conversations with my children took place in the rearview mirror because they would bring things up when we were in the car. And so I think finding those opportunities well in advance of even like maybe they're scaling up their intimacy, finding anything you can do to have conversations about that along the way to prepare for anything that might come up that they might see among friends or experience personally.
I think that's great. The teachable moments like during.
Mhm.
I know at times during different things I'd say, oh, he knows that wasn't real.
Mhm.
And maybe I won't address it right away. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, remember this? And he's like, no.
I have to say, my poor children, like, consuming like early Disney media were like, can we just watch? Does it have to be? And I'd be like, well, okay, we can just watch, but you have to tell me like what's wrong first.
Right.
And they'd be like, Beast is really predatory. He doesn't listen to what Bella's saying. And like, so early conversations like that, they may get a little bit like, Mom, does everything have to be a preach show? But I do think finding those little moments across the board, that being said, there's a lot of new content out there for particularly young parents and young children in teaching consent, teaching bodily autonomy from very early ages. There's really great books out there. We have a whole like media library and from young books to like young adult books to different films and TV series and stuff to reference that I think, again, we reference those on our site for parents to be able to say, these are things that you could watch to inform yourself more or to bring up conversations with your kids. And we also have like talking points and like things like that to resource with parents for parents to use as resources with their kids. So I think there's a lot of different places to find those types of things, but you kind of have to dig too. So sometimes just like in that moment when you're watching that show is like a little bit more at the ready.
Right.
Mhm. So taking action is powerful, but real safety comes when we build it together as a community. Let's talk about collective responsibility. Amy, how can friends leave together in a way that lowers risks, even if they came in different groups?
We talked about this in the first half, but I think having that plan of it, even if you're in separate groups, having a plan before you go out at night is one of the best ways to kind of figure out what you all are going to be doing at the end of the night. I'm one of those nerds that says failing to plan is planning to fail. So I believe in like having a plan of attack before you go out for your night and enjoy one another. And also make it a normal exit like you would any other time without drawing attention to it. Hey, y'all, ready to go? Let's go. Or it could be, I need help finding my keys. Can you all help me out over here? Or something very like low stakes, low risk that doesn't draw attention, especially if you have an aggressor that's around the group and y'all are trying to get out safely from that, not drawing any extra attention, but making sure that everybody is on the same level of like when this word is said or when we say it's time to go before you all get out of there. I think doing something where you were staying together, going out into a well-lit area, making sure that if you are getting into a shared ride, that you have that ride called and it is here before you go outside and wait and potentially get isolated out in an area where the aggressor could come find you if you're all still in the same space is really good as well. But really having those conversations before you all go out, I think is a really smart idea. It might seem super silly to get that conversation started, but it really just helps everybody in the end because you never know what happens when you're going out at night. It just like the hospitality industry is a fairly reactive space. We can plan for the best of everything. Something will always go wrong. Something will be out in the kitchen ingredient wise, or something you can't make on the bar and something comes out wrong and we always adjust and course correct as we're going along. But if we didn't have those plans in place ahead of time, it would be much harder to react in such a swift and seamless way without that planning piece. So planning ahead, moving together, keeping everything low stakes. Hey, it's time to go. You all ready? Let's go back to, don't even say where you're going back to. Sorry, correction on that. Let's get out of here. It's time to go. Somebody help me find my keys. And then having that ride ready to rock before you all get outside and go into a area where any other things could happen.
Awesome. Sloan, what campaigns have worked best at making consent seem, for lack of better terms, cool?
So our population, as far as like our audience, tends to be around the ages of 18 to 34. Our largest demographic is 25 to 34. And so in part because of that population and because our work tends to be more controversial, given our work in harm reduction with substances, it's harder for us to say like with college campuses, just because we don't, go on campuses and work in that way. But with that being said, it is a huge part of our population. And we, at least at our organization, are working really, really hard to do peer-based education that is really embedded into the culture of the community that we're working in to make it relatable and cool, especially given, a lot of college campus education, has this element of coming from authority figures. Despite best efforts, I think, to engage peer education and to have peers lead the conversation. And I think also just like the settings that we work in kind of facilitate the idea of consent being cool, that we really try to focus on that it's to maximize a good time. With that being said, there are many programs that are fantastic, and we absolutely think that bystander intervention and drug education should be included in any college program. And the most successful campaigns that we have used to like kind of back our own programming have been ones that really like raise a lot of awareness of what constitutes sexual violence and understanding it as a social problem that needs to be solved with community response. I will plug a few programs that I think are fantastic though at making consent cool. I think Good Night Out, specifically Good Night Out Vancouver. It's not in the States, but they have a lot of resources available online And they provide like event safety support, workshops, and education, and actually a street team that work out on the streets of British Columbia, serving as active bystanders and educating people on the go. And I also really recommend for students who are often on social media to be like getting some consent education in that relatable platform. And one person I would highly recommend is like consent.wizardry for really nuanced understanding of like consent as a daily practice.
Shayla,
No, I just thought I wanted to add to that too. Like Sloane's entirely right. It's really hard to find those like entry points to make things as relatable as possible to kids. But I think that's sort of where we started was like we knew that there's a lot of research out there that has examined the fact that a lot of programs are created by adults and delivered by adults. So that peer-to-peer investment, super critical, but also young people being invested and involved in the creation of that content too, so that that authenticity is there. So I think when, we're looking to really elevate the work from where it's been, we know that prevention work has been done for many years, but there's been like really limited investment in inviting kids in to create content as well as deliver content and really give them um leadership opportunity and stake in the game to invest their time and make things that I always say they're experts of their own experiences. So I think that creating content with them, and I think that's one of the things that has been so. I didn't really know what I was getting into when I started out partnering with a group of teenagers, but the amount of resources that they have been so incredibly engaged in creating and the way that they've dug in and taken that responsibility and taken that the helm and all of our all of our peer-to-peer education training, there's a lot of short format video content in that peer educator training, and all the video content created by young people, all of those scripts and those ideas and those concepts are from their experiences and from what they wanted to tackle, which is really hard to do because then that makes adults uncomfortable if you're having really authentic conversations that kids want to have. So threading that needle of like what's going to be just outside of the comfort zone for adults so that maybe they're not going to show them in their classroom, but also being authentic to kids' experiences, I think is a really difficult balance. So I just kind of wanted to speak to that too, like add that layer of complexity in there, because to be authentically you know reaching kids is a delicate balance because we make adults uncomfortable. So I think also spending time saying like, hey, adults, whether we're comfortable or not, this is important stuff that we need to step back and let kids take the lead on and be adult allies to what they say they need to have in conversation so that we can learn from that and learn how best to address it. But I think we're all in that same mindset of and space. But I really like find that I want to challenge more, local direct service agencies and other organizations to really invest in that youth as leaders and guidance and taking their guidance from them.
Sloan?
I so appreciate you piggybacking off of that. We really center peer education at our program because we strongly believe like it's not for the community if it's not with the community. And those voices are the ones that are going to know most what their experiences are and what their needs might be, even if they don't know the best way to go about meeting them. And there's a whole aspect of like understanding culture, understanding language, to make things feel authentic and relatable. Being a part of that culture helps you know the inside jokes or the metaphors you can use to make things click, or the specific scenarios that people might be in that an adult who isn't in that space, who isn't at a rave, who isn't at a festival, just might not get. So I really love you highlighting that point that we got to involve the people that we're serving in the provision of services.
I want to bring up that we had a younger person here suggest that we get on the Dance Safe website, and we purchased their cards. They're like postcards about each of the drugs, or a lot of the drugs, and we've put them in a carousel of postcards, and we bring it places with us. It has given us so much street cred. Like we, we're often seen as like the no fun police and like, you're anti everything. We're really trying to take a more of a harm reduction approach. But I have been like at church fairs where young people, young adults have come up and been like, what's this? Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Can I take some of these home for my friends? And absolutely. So I think reaching out to organizations and younger people or the people that we are trying to serve and getting information is so helpful and makes you a lot more relatable and believable. Yeah. So thank you, Dance Safe, for that.
We love to hear it. We honestly have some of our best conversations by having people come up curious about the drug cards, whether they are excited about them or they're horrified. It gives us a really great opportunity to have like one-on-one conversations where we can kind of get into the meat of things. And so we love to hear people using and spreading the cards. People
They also have
collect
beautiful art on them too.
they
So
do. Yeah, we even have iterations, so they're collectible. We'll have new artists come through and do new versions, and I've had people be like, "Oh, I had this version three versions ago, 10 years ago, up on my wall on my college dorm bedroom wall," and they'll get really excited to see the new one. So we kind of try to keep it exciting in that way too.
awesome. I didn't know they were collectible. I'll have to check out the newer editions. Brittany, are there things that you can offer parents and kids to reassure them that they're not going to be in trouble? I just know as a mom that I would be concerned about the future of my child and what was going to happen if they had to get police involvement. So there's some things that you can tell us that would reassure parents and students of their safety.
I think just mainly like our focus now has been to getting to what the problem is and to identifying that problem and to keeping that person safe. Things can happen before that we can look aside. Like our main priority is that person and getting them where they need, even if that's mental health, if that's under the age and they're drinking, if that's an elderly person that's lost their way, we need to get them to safety. That's what we do. And that's what we're here for. And that's kind of where our avenues changed. We do more safety and security with that than the retribution kind of side and the laws and the arrests, and we want to make sure that they're safe. So on top of that, some of our safety things that we do for downtown is that I will go down with officers and we will do like undercover buys to bars or liquor stores so that we'll have an underage person go in, so that we're making sure that they're IDing and that we can address those that are not doing that. And then we will go in ourselves and go into bars to make sure that they are IDing the individuals that are coming in. So we have safety there. We have other officers on the street, extra officers during the summer that monitor the bars just themselves for people coming in and out, or just those people that, don't really fit amongst the community, that are causing issues, that are, just looking odd and out of place. So we have all these extra kind of things to keep the community safe, to keep, parents informed about what's going on, especially if they're concerned that their child's going to be out and in the bars drinking. We have extra officers out there keeping the community safe.
Thank you. That's good to know. Elizabeth, what do you say to someone who thinks this isn't abuse because they're not hitting me?
There are many different kinds of abuse. Physical abuse is absolutely not the only way someone can experience abuse. The main ones that are taught about are physical abuse, emotional abuse, and financial abuse. But as we mentioned in the last session, there's also a lot of new forms of cyber abuse that are coming out. And there's a lot of just different tactics that abusers will use that, maybe don't even fit in one of those categories. But I would just say that even though there isn't physical harm, that doesn't mean they aren't harming you. There are so many different, emotional harm is just as valid as physical harm. In fact, the toll that emotional harm can take can be so long-term and so damaging to someone's mental health. It can be sometimes even worse than physical harm. And there's no I would never downgrade the experience anyone's had. You know, there are absolutely levels of abuse, but any abuse is abuse. No matter the level you're facing, you are facing abuse, and it's okay to categorize that. I know Jennifer mentioned that, like, oftentimes when they get calls, people don't even know if they were sexually assaulted. They can't really recognize it. It's the same thing in abusive relationships. It's hard to see what's happening to you in that moment until you're able to kind of take a step back and realize, wow, that person did not have my best interest in mind. You know, that person never really cared for me in the way they should have. I know you have these deep emotional connections with the people you're in relationships with, so it makes it even harder to see the bad things that they are doing to you. But abuse of any form, it can be incredibly damaging and have long-term effects and create trauma in your life, even beyond just physical. I know that a lot of the times people see physical abuse as kind of the main form, but I actually find that often emotional abuse is far more common than physical abuse in relationships. And also take yourself out of the relationship. Tell the story as if your friend is telling this to you. Think about it as if your friend came to you and said, my partner did this to me. How would you feel about it then? Would you be okay if your friend's partner said this to them? Most likely you wouldn't.
Very true.
Yeah. Jennifer, if you had 5 minutes with every student before they went to their first college party, what would you say to them?
That first semester, that first time you're going out to those college parties, you are in a position where you are trying to make connections really quickly. And you are looking to trust the people around you very quickly in a way that prior you may have had years to develop connections. That's great. That's really, really good. Find a community, find a group that you can trust, but also be aware that each and every one of you are new to each other. You know, the friends that you're going to have that freshman year, I know for my sake, they looked a lot different from the friends I had my senior year. That being around people that you feel safe with is important, but also be aware. Aware of your surroundings, aware of the things that, you know, earlier when Amy was saying the resources that they can have. And also, you know, it's one thing to say be aware. It's one thing to say, you know, look who to trust and go out with friends and groups and all of the safety tips, or we call them safer tips, right? But if something happens, you're not alone. This happens to so many people, and there is help out there. I think that's something that more survivors need to hear, and more people who are allies to survivors also need to hear that that person who maybe just came to you and told you that something happened, they're not the anomaly. Stand by them, listen to them, connect with them, and help them.
Thank you. Thank you all for another great conversation. This one is, it always hits home. The topics always hit home, but this one just does a little something. I want to give you each an opportunity to give out your websites, your resource information. We could start with Jennifer. You can give us your hotline, just for all our viewers and listeners, please.
If you have been sexually assaulted or somebody that you know has been sexually assaulted, you can get help. You're not alone. You can visit RAINN.org, RAINN.org, and you can connect with our National Sexual Assault Hotline there, or you can text HOPE to 64673.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi. If you or someone you know are facing abuse, there's a lot of different resources out there for you. As Brittany mentioned earlier, the Rhode Island Coalition of Domestic Violence has a hotline. There are also a lot of national hotlines available. Our organization is another resource. Our 24-hour hotline number is 800-494-8100. And then our office number is 401-846-5263. And our website is wrcnbc.org, or you can just Google the Women's Resource Center and it'll pop right up for you.
Sloan.
So for our everything is housed under dancesafe.org. You can find all of our drug education there, information on hydration, ear protection, just general harm reduction practices. But if you're looking for consent related materials, you can go to dancesafe.org/weloveconsent, where you can find all our blog posts, podcasts, free print resources. And we also have another campaign that we worked on called Healing is Power, which is a 6-part campaign that's looking at a variety of issues in the festival nightlife community. So we cover power dynamics and consent, drugs and consent, public figure and integrity. We have a whole section on grooming with public figures, like in the music industry. Bystander intervention, supporting survivors, and healing as a community. And that's available at dancesafe.org/healing-is-power.
Thank you. And Shale.
Yeah, for anyone who is looking for more information about dating violence prevention programming, ways to get involved in and become a peer educator or lead this type of work in your school, we are at safebae.org, SAFEBAE.org, and or on Instagram or TikTok at safe_bae.
Thank you.
This has been great. Thank you all again for this. This is just, I'll be thinking about this again for weeks after, just like the first one. So it's just so many gems throughout the whole thing. And so it's just bite size all in my head at time after time. So thank you again. I really appreciate this.
Yes, thank you. It's been so informative and a great resource for our community.
Thank you all for hosting this and having us today.
Until
Yeah,
next
it's
time.
been a pleasure.
Thank,
And I've enjoyed learning from everyone too. So thank you.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Bye, all.
Thanks, everybody.